Hi, Grant.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Okay, I think we're live right now. All right, and hi, Grant. You got to turn that off. All right. So I think we figured it out. So, Grant, thanks for joining me. This is an exciting time. We're about to launch a Kickstarter.
Yes, again.
Yeah, again, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and this is the first one for me. So it's all new.
Right.
But you've kind of been part of projects that have done this before. I know one in particular, which this project is related to, of course.
Yeah. No, it's been all right. I've done a few of these, I think, over the years.
Yeah, yeah. What are some of the other ones you've worked on?
Look, you know what? I can't remember. I guess Chicken Wiggle. I've just done that one with Jules Watsham. What? I forget his name now. From Tui. Helped out with that one a little bit. Who else?
I feel like I've seen your name.
They've not all done great. Some have done all right. Some haven't.
Yeah, but it's always awesome when Grant Kirkhope is involved, right?
Well, I think people just think get me in for a bit of extra promotion. Get the old get in from. And get him to do a bit of stuff. Hopefully, cross your fingers that I'll do some good, which I don't always do. I try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you have made a lot of music that people remember, including myself. So, I mean, I would say that probably about maybe 20% of the work that I've done on the book so far was done listening to Grant Kirkhope tunes on endless repeat. So you got to get the right vibe for everything. So it was definitely kind of listening to a lot of bouncy music to inspire.
Well, so you're still sane, right?
Yeah, I haven't lost my mind yet. Not all the way. Maybe by the end of the project, we'll see. We'll see how the campaign does, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, I sort of feel that the ukulele music isn't all completely bouncy. I guess I did a little bits and pieces that maybe weren't. Like obviously, I've tried to capture the banjo kazooie feeling,
Yeah.
But I think as you get a bit older, as I am, of course, that you do tend to, like other things and introduce other elements. And I didn't want to make it absolutely banjo kazooie. So it's got little bits different to it, I think. And also, don't forget, Dave and Steve were writing tunes too, so it had a good variety, I think.
Yeah, that was an interesting mix. It was nice that it was segmented like that, so that you could kind of focus on the bulk of the music in the levels and be able to have Dave participate in the minecart sections, and then Steve did most of the mini games, correct?
Yeah, I think we felt that when we started off with the game, it was obvious who should do bit, who should do what. Like it was, ukulele was more of a banjo kazooie type game, so it made sense that I did the kind of lion's share of the music. But whatever Playtonic go to do in the future, games because it may be more in Dave's camp or Steve's camp. So, and I may do less than everybody else, So that was the way we kind of thought about it in the first place.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, it is 2:30 on my clock right here, so I think it's time to launch the campaign. I'm going to go ahead and click this big button right here that says launch now with lots of warnings around it. Lots of warnings. I've got to read the details, the terms of use, the privacy policy, and the Kickstarter rules. I think I've checked that all out. Right? I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we'll be all right.
Okay. All right, let's launch. Ooh, it says drum roll. That's exciting. Up, the project is live. All right. Yep. Okay, everybody throw money at us.
Oh, you, not me.
Oh, well, I'll throw some money at you sometime. Yeah, I think I owe you lunch. We never did get lunch that one time.
No, but I mean, since you live so far away now, I was like, there's much chance of that.
That's no excuse. What is it, 3,000 miles? That's not a big deal. You used to be a lot further away.
I suppose, but I guess when you live in the UK, nothing's that far away, right? It's only a small place. Living in America, everything's far away.
Yeah, but I think from one end of the UK to the other is actually shorter than from, say, what is it, Burbank to Venice Beach, right? Because the traffic times, right?
that might be true. Yeah, traffic's not great, is it? I don't know how long the UK is. I don't know. I guess I don't know. Is it 1,000 miles? Is it that far? Is it not? I'm guessing it. Well, from John O'Groats to Land's End.
I'm an artist. I don't know geography. No.
But that's the northernmost point to the southernmost point of the UK. John O'Groats to Land's End.
Right.
Land's End in the south. John O'Groats is top of Scotland. So I don't know. Is it 1,000 miles? I don't know. It might be less. I'm not sure.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Since we just launched, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the screen share, and I'm going to play the video for everybody so you can see what the project involves. Does that sound pretty good? All right. Let's see if I can figure this out. Because Google changes their system every 5 minutes, so it might have changed since we started the stream. All right. Okay, here we go. to share my screen, and now we're going to get a million windows open. And here's the video, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this. Hi, I'm Dave Cumbo. I worked for years as an artist in video games and animation, mainly with Insomniac Games on the Ratchet & Clank titles. And over the past few years, I've broken into the world of illustrated books and graphic novels. Now I'm thrilled to introduce my newest project, Yooka Laylee and the Kracklestone, a full-color 120-page adventure based on the game. While working in the games industry, I'd often dedicate my nights and weekends to making my own comics and illustrated books as a hobby, and eventually I decided to make it a full-time effort. In addition to making my own stories, I remembered how cool it was to read comics based on my favorite childhood Nintendo games. Given how many amazing games are made today, I feel there's a greater opportunity than ever before for comics based on them. As a huge Rareware fan, I was thrilled when ex-Rare developers Playtonic Games agreed to let me make a book based on Yooka Laylee. The story features a brand new adventure for the heroic chameleon and bat duo. After acquiring the key to a brand new tome, Yooka and Laylee set off to find an especially rare artifact called the Kracklestone, fabled to grant invincibility. It isn't long before they realize they're in a race against time trying to beat the evil Dr. Quack to the treasure. If you're a Yooka fan, I've made this book for you. It has 9 distinct worlds and tons of characters new and old. It has big bad bosses, adventurous exploration, falling into giant pits, evil ducks, crystally caverny places, explosive carbonated larvae, partially mutated tentacled sciencey ladies, and oh, we can't forget Rupert the Pantless Flower Monster. Of course, there's a lot more I won't spoil. So why Kickstarter? Put simply, I've taken the project as far as I can alone. My campaign goal is the minimum amount needed to finish this book properly and produce a premium physical edition. I've invested 2 years of my time and energy so far, and still need about 6 months to finish it in polished color. While I could have used a simpler art style, I want every panel to be a gorgeous work of art. Publishers rarely invest in this sort of passion project, and almost certainly wouldn't be willing to print a premium edition quite like this. The bottom line is, in order to finish this project the way it was meant to be, I need your help. I've got some awesome rewards. If you pledge $15 or more, you'll get a digital ebook version of the story. For only $30, you'll get a copy of the book with a hardcover binding, a hand-sewn spine, and premium quality paper. The $50 backer edition tier includes a unique Kickstarter exclusive version of the hardcover book with a backer seal on the cover, gilded edges, and a signed bookplate. For $75, you can get the Grand Tome Edition Collector's Pack. It includes the Backer Edition book, a double-sided metal crackle coin, a character art print pack, a bookmark, and it also includes the signed bookplate. It's my promise to you that the Backer Edition book will never be printed again, so this 30-day campaign is your only chance to nab this rare collectible. There's always a chance of surpassing our goal, and I've prepared some exciting stretch goals. If we hit the first, every book will receive 3D sculptural debossing, overlaid with clear holographic foil right on the cover itself. Additional goals include a special making of section, a bonus comic story bound into every copy, and there might be a few more surprises too. Your reward items will be made here in the USA and will be shipped to you in a custom mailing carton. If you're in a region other than the US or Canada, your package will ship from the UK, which means low-cost shipping for international backers. I'll be using BackerKit to assist with campaign communication and fulfillment. And if you want multiple rewards, including more copies of the book, BackerKit will allow you to amend your pledge after the campaign ends. Your support means the world to me. Please help spread the word. The more backers we get, the greater the book will become. And with enough support, I can pursue more game adaptations, so your favorite game could be next. Regardless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the updates. All right. What did you think, Grant?
That was great. That was cool for me.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, like I said at the end, that pretty much sums it up. It's, your support makes this sort of thing possible. Whether it's a Kickstarter campaign or, Grant and I both come from the game industry, and it was kind of just a strange break I did into illustration for books. But, support, whether it's a Kickstarter campaign or, supporting your favorite games when they come out, is really kind of the key to our ability to keep making it. So, that's why I decided to take this to Kickstarter, amongst other reasons. But staying independent is a big part of that. So, what I thought would be good to do a little bit is talk about the history of the development of this. And, one of the reasons I wanted to have this session with Grant is because Grant is actually the reason this project began. Without Grant, the connection would not have been made between myself and Playtonic Games. So I thought we might talk just a little bit about that. So this was actually quite a while ago that you and I had met, Grant. I think you had just moved to the States at the time, and we had chatted a bit online, just professionally talking about different career moves, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like 2012, I think I moved to LA, didn't I? I moved to Baltimore in 2008. I was in Baltimore.
Right, and that was with Big Huge, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That was a great score, by the way. I mean, it was a different challenge for you, though, right?
yeah, like I think writing Kingdoms of Amalur was a bit. It was different for me. I had not written something of that style before.
Mm-hmm.
Not something that was like full blown massive RPG like it is. So that was my, that's when I started really thinking about how John Williams writes his scores, like more than before. I think it really occurred to me that I needed to write something. Not saying that what I wrote was as good as John Williams, because it isn't. But I needed to write.
That's the spirit right there.
I needed to write something that was, in my mind, in the right style. So I tried to learn his style of orchestration and how the woodwinds are all very elaborately all over the place, and just that kind of. The first piece I wrote that I kind of had a go at it was a piece called Baylor, which is for one of the big bosses. That was the first big boss piece I did for the game. So I really tried to push the boat out and just try and do that Harry Potter thing, and I don't know. You tell me. I felt like it was getting there on the kind of how complex it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was wonderful, and let me also say, since you always talk about John Williams, how do you know that John Williams is not sitting here playing Banjo-Kazooie, saying, why can't I write like Grant Kirkhope?
Yeah, something says that I don't think he is. I don't think he's particularly technically literate, so I don't think he'd be playing games, let alone being sat on a computer or anything like that. No, if only. Okay, I'd love to meet John Williams. I've been in the same room as him twice, but I was too frightened to say hello. So I'm hoping that I'll bump into one. I guess it's unlikely, but I'd like to at least shake his hand and tell him, that he's molded the way I write music, really, because he has.
Right. Well, I mean, he's been in. John Williams. I mean, who has not been inspired by John Williams?
Mm.
I mean, I don't make music, and I'm inspired by John Williams.
Yeah. No, I think he's one of those. What is he? 84, 85? Is he? He's getting on. I mean, I went to the Hollywood Bowl to see him this time for his 40th anniversary. It's a good night. I really enjoyed it. So I don't know. I'd just like to shake his hand. I think that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to buy him a pint. You think you drink pints?
Say it again.
You think he'll drink pints if I buy him a pint of beer?
I don't know what that means.
Well, a pint is I don't know what a pint is.
Oh, a pint. Yes, I think I owe you a few of those.
Well, I'll say I could buy John Williams a pint of beer if I met him. So I'd buy him a pint.
My favorite John Williams is E.T.
Yeah, yes. I mean, the thing is, he's written so much great stuff, right? It's hard to kind of single it out. I guess for me, I think because I like Harry Potter so much in general, I really like that. The 3 Harry Potter scores that he did, I kind of find they're the best. And I feel like I learned a lot from those scores. Like I learned a lot from other stuff, but in particular, those 3 scores.
Yeah, and I think you had mentioned that one tune in particular in the Yooka Laylee score for the Glitter Glaze Glacier, right, was one that we were trying to get a bit of a different approach. Maybe mention that, because I know that's an interesting story about how you had changed the theme at some point. Yeah,
so when I did the Kickstarter, Gav asked me to do something that was, apart from doing that main theme that I did, the jungle thing, he said, can you just write something else just to add to the Kickstarter? So I kind of wrote a quick 30 seconds of winter level sort of thing. I was thinking about Freeze Easy Peaks. I didn't know, because we didn't know what it was going to look like at that point. We didn't know how it was going to be, how it would be. And so but when I saw the level, the tunes didn't fit anymore. I needed something more pretty and sparkly and less bouncy Christmas and more just general, not general, but more icy expanse of beautifulness, So,
right. That's a fantastic story. But I have to say, Grant, my favorite rendition of that is the underwater version, which I used in the Kickstarter video.
Oh yeah.
By the way, I used your music. Did you know that?
Yeah. No, I did that right at the end. Andy Robinson, he was the guy that wrote the narrative, all the text and stuff, what have you. He said, we've got to have the underwater stuff, and we hadn't really planned to write that. And so right at the very end, I had a mass panic, and I wrote just all the water tunes for all the water for the game in the last few days. Really, I just kind of stuck it. So I didn't have much time to spend over it. So I just kind of I crossed my fingers and hoped it turned all right. So yeah, so I wrote those really last minute, all the underwater parts.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful tune. So yeah, as far as how we had gotten started with this project, so it was actually quite a long time ago. I think it was because if I remember correctly, you and I had a conversation at some point where I think I was joining the chorus of people begging you to try and get the band back together to
Right.
make a game, because I just wanted to play another one. And I can only replay Banjo-Kazooie so many times.
Right.
Although it is an annual tradition for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you had at some point mentioned something to me that this is some very exciting news, that some of the rare crew is going to get back together to make a new game, and that was very exciting. And
yeah.
And this was right around the time that I was heading out from Insomniac. I was at Insomniac Games for about 7 years, working on mostly Ratchet and Clank games. And then when I had left, I left because I wanted to move into books and illustrated books, graphic novels, that sort of thing. And I had an original project I started called Dreamside, which I was developing at the time. And I thought, if I were ever to do a book based on a game, it would have to be like Banjo-Kazooie. It would have to be a Banjo-Kazooie book. Like that would be the first one I would have chosen. And I think there's complexity involved with working with a larger company. And in the same spirit as the game, of Yooka Laylee, it made a lot of sense to kind of approach this new smaller team. And I said, if they're trying to make a game that takes everything that we love about Banjo-Kazooie and take it into a different direction, but also kind of pack it full of all that nostalgic goodness that we love, then why can't I if I was going to do a Banjo-Kazooie book, maybe I could do a Yooka Laylee book. And I'd approached Grant at the time, and Grant made that connection happen very quickly, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so. I think I just hooked up with Gav, didn't I? I think I sent Gav an email and said, talk to this man. He wants to do something with Yooka Laylee, something like that. And Gav's really open to sort of, this is Gavin Price, by the way, the head guy at Playtonic.
He's a wonderful man.
Yeah, Gav's open to wacky ideas. Well, not wacky ideas. He's open to all sorts of stuff. So he's always on the lookout for things that he thinks are a good idea. Like he's always been like that. I've known Gav for a very long time, like through my rare days. And he's always been one of the guys that's kind of always has an ear and an eye open for something that he thinks is, going to be cool.
Wonderful. That's yeah, and it was really great to connect. I mean, it was fun to meet Gavin, but at the time, actually, people may be surprised at how long ago this was. I think it was about 3 years ago. So the discussion of doing a book came up during the crowdfunding campaign for the game. That's how early we were talking about this. So this project is really a long time coming. But at the time, without getting into too much of the inner details, because I don't want to get Gavin mad at me talking about the wrong things, but basically there wasn't a lot of development at that time yet in the game. And so there wasn't much work done on the story. And so it was kind of about a year away from any sort of talk about a book, but the interest was there. And so, I think maybe Gavin had sort of expected that I would just kind of go away and not come back. But I did come back about a year later. And at the time, I was talking with Gavin and some of the folks at Team 17 as well, who were, handled production on the game, and were theoretically going to handle production on the book as well. And we kind of worked out a lot of details. But yeah, it took a long time to get this project going.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that Yooka Laylee was made. The bulk of the game was made with like 10 people. Like everyone, it kind of ballooned into this. It's a larger company now. I guess there's like 30 guys there, maybe a bit more. I'm not sure. Some ladies too, of course. But like, you forget that the majority of the game was made with just that very basic, tiny team. And to turn out something of that size, of that kind of quality, from mostly 10 people is quite an achievement. I don't think anybody really understands what a lot of effort that took. And the back end of the game got more people, but most of the development was done by a very small bunch of people.
Right.
And how they turned it out in the time they had, it was incredible. It really was.
Yeah, it really is. And especially as I think about that in contrast with typical game budgets, not to get too much into the workings of game budgets, but I can say that it's funny because for the Kickstarter campaign, it did very, very well for a Kickstarter campaign, and it had a ton of support. But the problem is that it's just so expensive to make games that they still had, they really had, they didn't have much to work with for the amount that they had to do.
Yeah, I think people just understand that thing about how much it really costs.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes people forget that Playtonic are an indie company. They're not owned by anybody else. There's no big money behind them. It just is those guys making the game, right? So I think they, because Banjo-Kazooie was done by a corporate company, people expect Playtonic to turn out a game like that, because of the same, and they're not the same as that. It's just a few people on a passion project, and it's difficult to try and get that point across because lots of time people never get that. Like your typical indie game is usually the graphical quality isn't up there because you just can't afford the time to make it. You can't afford the time, or you get one guy making the game by himself and it takes him 6 years. I know lots of indie guys who kind of said, "Oh, I'm going to make a game in 6 months," and 6 years later it comes out because they just don't anticipate what it takes to make a game. It's a massive undertaking. So Playtonic sometimes, it was a bit of a thorn on the side because the people forget it's just an indie company. It's not some kind of corporate thing. It's just a bunch of indie guys making an indie game. And for it to turn out like it has, it's just amazing. People just don't get that.
It is. I've worked on games that are similar conceptually to Yooka Laylee, and they typically, what today? You wouldn't be surprised to have a game that had a $40 to $50 million budget to be able to make a game like.
The giant AAAs are like double, triple that money.
So it's a passion. It's a passion project, is what it was.
Yeah.
And for that team to put that, I think that's what really blew me away when I played the game. Is I just couldn't believe how much was put into that game. And I think, most people, when they complete the game, when they really totally complete the game, they spend a good, 35 hours on it or so. And the first time I had played it, it was about that. So yeah, it's to get that much into it was incredible. It was very inspiring. And I thought these are great characters. It's a great world. And I love their independent spirit. And I thought that would really be a great candidate for a book because this way I can develop something that, I can make very special, and I don't, we don't have too much of the, as we call it, design by committee. There's not too many people involved. And Playtonic, the major thing that they had conveyed from the beginning is that they had a responsibility to their backers, and that it was extremely important that they stay focused on game development. They can't use things like Kickstarter money for funding things like this. They were really, really very focused on making the best possible experience for backers. And so my decision was, how could I go about making a book like this? And I thought, well, there are obviously a lot of people out there who would be interested in the game. And I thought, well, by extension, maybe, I always would have wanted a Banjo-Kazooie book when I was younger. I thought that was really cool. And there was a lot of, as I mentioned in the Kickstarter video, there were a lot of, not a lot, actually, there were only very few really good game adaptation comics, like graphic novels. I'm thinking about the Link to the Past one that was in the Nintendo Power magazine back in the 1992 or so. That was very inspiring. But there really weren't very many like that. And I thought there needs to be more of these. So my intention was not only to make in the beginning, I thought, well, maybe we'll see if we can get this Yooka Laylee book going, and maybe I'll get them to bite, and maybe there might be some other studios who are interested too. And so that's when I started thinking about this in terms of what I've been calling the Game Legends Library, which is hopefully will be a long-running series of game adaptations that start with Yooka Laylee and the Kracklestone, but we'll hopefully branch off from there. We'll see where it goes. But in order for that to happen, the Kickstarter is going to have to be successful. And if it's not, then we're going to look into a different course of action. But if it is, then this is the opportunity to make something very special. And my promise to backers with this is that this, not only is this book going to be a very good book, a very well-made book, and a particularly impressive physical edition. We're really going, we're sparing no expense on the book itself. But my promise also is to try and leverage this to interest other studios. So, as I say at the end of the video, your favorite game could be next. And I can't tell you some of the other places that I have been talking to about adaptations right now, because that's top secret. But there's always the potential of branching out into other directions. So we'll see where to go. But Right now, I'm extremely excited about finishing this book. This is not just as the game was a labor of love. This book is well, in total, I think it will be 2.5 years. So I think, as Andy put it, Grant, it's almost like my own little game production.
Yeah, no, I think it feels like that. I think it's, and also you need people to be passionate about this stuff. Like, it's too easy to kind of corporate just toss it off. Like, it's like you need to have that indie spirit about things like this. And it is a passion project. The game is, and the book will be the same way. And I kind of feel that's in a way you kind of guarantee the quality, because people really care about what you like. You really care about what you do. It's not just something you do to make money. It's like you're doing something you really want to. That makes all the difference out of this.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the irony is, even if you were to think about things like money, the only way to do it anyway is to make something really good. And so, you may as well be passionate about what you're doing. So, Grant, you've been really fortunate, I think, to be able to work on such fun games as I have as well through Ratchet, and, I'm hoping that will continue far into the future. I can't wait to see all the projects that you'll be producing in the future.
Well, let's hope so. I need to pay the bills, right? I have to keep my wife in the Starship Customs.
Yeah, see, it is about the money. I knew it.
It's not cheaper living in LA, as you know.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Like I've been, like literally, it was my 23rd anniversary, like a couple of days ago, 15th of October, when I started at Rare, 1995. So I've been working as a video game composer for 23 years.
Wow.
And I can't really believe that I'm still doing it. Like, I keep thinking, how on earth am I, I've almost had two careers, like a company career and a freelance career. Like, most composers don't make the switch from company to freelance very easily. And I really don't know how I managed it, really. I've just been bloody lucky as usual. So, getting to do Mario Rabbids last year and the Donkey Kong thing after that, I mean, that's just ridiculous. How on earth did I get to write music for a Mario game? Like, I'll never know. Like,
that was awesome.
Yeah. How on earth did that happen? I mean, I look back at it now and think, I almost can't believe it. So, Mr. Davide Soliani's been a nice chap.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's. What I want to just briefly go over, as long as we're still on here. First of all, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll get to them. But also, just to let you know, just some of the details about what's going on. If you go to the Kickstarter page, you get all kinds of details on there. There's a pretty long description on there, giving a kind of a more detailed look at the story, and there's tons of character art in there. You can see some of the adaptations of your the many characters from Yooka Laylee and a few of the new ones, including 2 boss characters. I did make boss characters for the book. The Bombly Bug Queen being one of them, and poor Rupert the Pantless. He's still doesn't have any pants, but he'll get them one day. Yeah. And so, go take a look at the character art and check out some of the page samples, and really spread the word as much as you can, because that's how these things work. So if you want to see this book become a reality, then please do help me spread the word, and see if we can get this book funded. Yeah,
I'll second that. Let's see what we can do. I shall be tweeting out as much as I can and see if people, what they make of it all. I know it's going to be great. So let's just make sure they get a bit of cash to get it stuck out.
Now, Grant, you got a question. Are you looking forward to Chris's new Rusty Pup game?
That'll be awesome. Chris Sievers is a brilliant designer, along with Sean Pyle, who's his programmer. And I know that game will be great. Everything that Chris generally touches is great. It's taken me a while to stick it out, but just him and Sean working on it by themselves. I think Chris Marler helped a little bit. But that'll be great. I know it. Chris is a great designer, and it'll be good fun, and it'll have a lot of humor in it, and it'll be funny.
I've never seen an art style quite like it before. It's so detailed, and it's got that. It's almost like a. It does have the pre-rendered graphic look, kind of like a high-resolution Donkey Kong Country, but it's very, very detailed.
Yeah, Chris is people forget also that Chris started at Rare as an artist. That's who he was. He was an artist.
I didn't know that.
Before he became designer. There's a long story behind the Conker game. There's a lot of fallouts along the way, but Chris went from being an artist on it to being a designer. He's a great designer. He's a great artist. So that's why, all the artwork, he did it by himself. All the art in the game is him. All the design in the game is him. So you forget that everything you see and play is him.
Right.
Obviously, Sean programmed it all. Sean's a great programmer. He was a programmer too. But, don't forget, Chris drew it all and designed it all.
I can't wait to check it out.
It'll be awesome.
Yeah, you got one more question here, and I don't think you're going to answer this question. It says, "Is it confirmed that you will be composing for Playtonic's next game?" Is that fishing? Are you fishing for information here?
Oh, well, no, I've said it. I am working on the game they're doing at the moment. So I've done
Okay, all right. Well, that's well.
that. I think Dave's also involved in it as well, Mr. Wise. So yes, I have. In fact, I've actually just finished. Actually, I've just finished writing music for that thing. I can't say anything on that.
Okay.
But,
so I can hear it all, but we'll get off the stream and you can just play it all for me, right?
That's right. Well, yes, I've done it. Yeah, I have done a bit for that. As I say, Dave's done it to some as well. So I've just finished it. So I don't know what their release schedule is or any of that. I don't really know what that is. But I do know that I've finished my little bit, so I'm done.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think you will be creating more and more Yooka Laylee comics if this one is a success, or is it more of a one-time thing? Yeah, I mean, I can't 100% guarantee that I'll have permission to, but I definitely will. So yeah, I mean, that would be something to work out with Playtonic, but I can't understand why they wouldn't want to do more if this one was a success. I think that there are all kinds of ideas of what else to do with Yooka Laylee. I mean, in the process of working just a little bit on some ideas and just some of my own pitches to Playtonic, there were quite a few ideas I came up with. There were some involving. I had one that was a Rextro book. It was based around Rextro, and I won't give you any more details than that, but it was crazy. So there are a lot of ideas floating around out there. One hilarious one involving Capital B and Dr. Quack that I would love to do. So we'll see. Yeah, let's make this one a winner first, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
So someone is asking where the bad language is, Grant. Where's the bad language?
Well, see, because like I learned my lesson, right? Well, I nearly learned my lesson. Like doing the Game Grumps thing, I just didn't think it would be that big a deal. And then 2 million listens later, whatever it's had, it's like, oh, like everyone's heard me swear and talk about my bollocks and all the rest of it, So it kind of, my wife was like, yeah, that's probably not the best idea because as my kids get older, like the friends start to find things online about me, and they're like, "Oh, that's your dad, is it?" So I kind of learned that that's forever. And yeah, so I'm trying to moderate my language just in case my kids' friends find me online, which is I'm online quite a bit. I'm also doing the Big Bad Bosses track for Gerard, the completionist. Khalil, when I did the rap track for that, I Am Grant Kirkhope thing. There was supposed to be there is a version with no swearing in it, and I sort of said, I'll do it, the rapping, but I don't want to do any bad language. And my wife said, really, you should try not to do that. And so I did it. Of course, it was full of bad language. And Gerard said, yeah, but we're going to have a edited version, a radio-friendly version that's going to take all the bad language out of it. I said, oh, great. Of course, when it came to say, no, we don't like that. It's better with the swearing. So I was like, oh, no, I did it again. So I'm trying to be good. So I do have a tend to.
Well, the thing is, Grant, honestly, you talk quickly enough that I don't think anybody would be able to know if you are swearing. So I think we'd be okay.
Yes, I'm trying to moderate my language. I'm getting older. I'm probably getting more foul-mouthed as I get older. So I'm managing to hold it in today.
That's one of the benefits of getting older, right? You can become more, we'll say, colorful.
Interesting
language. Yeah. So we've got a few more questions here. Now, here's one that I agree with entirely. It's not so much a question as a statement. I would love to see a Jet Force Gemini spiritual successor from Playtonic based on the female character from Galleon Galaxy. Yes, that is Shell is the name of that character, by the way.
That's a great game. And Mr. Robin Beanland did the music for that. That's a great game, that one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. One of my favorite rare games. Actually, I'll bring up something interesting about Jet Force Gemini. This is kind of hard to explain, but Jet Force Gemini was one of the first rare games, I think, and maybe Grant, you might know more about this having been there at the time, but just in terms of the art design, to use gradient colors in the textures in a way that I don't remember really seeing before, which is a really big thing that I tend to do in my art. And I trace it back to Jet Force Gemini as a big inspiration. I think Diddy Kong Racing did it. Which one came first, Diddy Kong or Jet Force Gemini?
Diddy Kong came first.
Oh, so maybe it was Diddy Kong. I know Diddy Kong did it, but it was very clever. So in order to kind of add a bit more color, because the rare games in the 90s, they were these color bombs. They had just so much color all over the place, and that was one of the things I really loved about it. If you look at the comic, I mean, it's just, I've tried to make it as colorful as possible to reminisce on that experience of just having my eyes blow up from the amount of color on the screen. But they would emphasize that by doing color gradients that were painted in, and it was just an amazing effect. So I really would, part of what gave that game such a distinct look, and it's really easy to try and interpret that into illustrations and try and bring those kind of color gradient effects into the comic. So if you look at the pages, you'll see how I use a lot of gradients all over the place to try and emulate that effect. Yeah. So we do have another question here. What art software has been used to put the comic together? This is actually a combination of software packages. I use both Clip Studio and Procreate on the iPad. I was using exclusively Clip Studio originally, and then I moved to Procreate to do a lot of the illustration stuff. So kind of a combination of the two of them. And I do branch off into some other territories, and including at one point I was integrating 3D models into the book, but that I didn't end up doing that for very long. I feel like I may have lost Grant. I think.
No, I cut the power because you were sleeping on the job. Now get back to work. Snip, snip. How do you turn this bloody thing off?
I may have lost Grant, so I might be alone here. But we might be heading toward the end of the stream anyway. So I'm going to just answer a few more questions, and then we will call it quits for today. And let's see what we got here. All right. By the way, your art for Dr. Quack and the Kickstarter is incredible. I love your personal take on it. Well, thank you very much. That is, well, that's Dr. Quack with a few added features, including his evil grabby arms and his quack copter. Nobody notices the quack copter, but that's actually a really big part of the story. So I can't wait for you to learn more about the quack copter. I'm so pumped for Playtonic Dream Prism's futures. Yes, I'm pumped as well, and thanks to your support, that will be possible for us to have a future with Dream Prism. So thank you. Does the comic have a cheeky sense of humor? Any hidden adult gags? I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing like that in the book whatsoever. I would never do anything cheeky. Nothing. There's no adult humor. Nothing. No, I think that the book is, what I'll say in that regard is that if you're familiar with Rare history and sort of that sort of cheeky humor, I think you'll be very satisfied with the way the book is written. There's a lot of, we'll say it's got a lot of punny material in it. So yeah, it definitely has some good stuff in there for that. All right. Might the comic be referenced in future Playtonic games? That I can't answer. That, it's Playtonic and, the team at Rare have a lot in common in terms of the sort of legendary secrecy that they were always known to have. And so, it's funny because even though I did get the chance to work with the team a little bit on this book, just in terms of getting feedback and ensuring that things are in alignment with the game and, conceptually it fits the style of the game, I really know very, very little about their development process and what they're doing. So, that's the way that they like it to be. And, I have to respect that. So I can't really say for sure if anything that I'm doing will be used in a future Playtonic game, but that would be pretty cool, I think. All right. Can we consider this comic to be canon? Well, that's a really tough question. I actually got that question yesterday. I would say that it's probably something that I need to talk with Playtonic about a little bit more. What I can tell you, sort of the history of it, is that the story was written to be something that would fit within the universe, but there was so much original content that went into the story. It does share some landscapes with the game, but the only landscapes it does share are in the Hivory Towers and Shipwreck Creek area. The entirety of the rest of the book is all new. So it's one giant tome world that has a variety of landscapes, 8 in total in the fantasy world, and then it has Ivory Towers and Shipwreck Creek are referenced in there as well. So there's a lot of new content in there. And because of how much new stuff is in there, including the sort of enemies and Dr. Quack troops that Yooka Laylee encounter, it's hard to say if it's going to be considered canon, but it would be very cool if it was. And maybe we'll see if Playtonic can offer an opinion on that. I would go ahead and tweet out to them and ask them and see what they have to say about that. All right. If you do more projects like this, I'm backing them. Grew up with Banjo-Kazooie and Grant's music, and this made me smile so much. Well, that's wonderful to hear, and I really appreciate your support with this and any project in the future. It really means the world to me. It makes it possible to do this. It's a fun thing to be able to do for a living. And so if it's possible to make this a reality, then in exchange for your support, what I can tell you is that I will work with every ounce of effort that I have to make sure that this project is amazing and that every future book that I do is done properly. And this is not a quick cash in or anything of that nature. This is a passion project that itself has taken just as long as the game. So, it's definitely a serious production. So I do appreciate your support on that. What made you give Yooka more humanoid proportions and Laylee appear more feminine? That is something that I definitely want to cover in its own video because there's really a lot to that. What I can say is sort of a simple answer is that when you're working with characters from a video game, sometimes different designs are needed for different purposes. Now, Yooka and Laylee's design, if you notice, most of the game you spend time just kind of looking at the back of the characters. And that's just the nature of the 3D platformer. And so when you adapt it into a comic, sometimes you have to make a few changes in order to ensure that it's going to be able to work well on paper, and you're not going to end up with sort of hard to read design. So I did have to I found that I had to modify Yooka a little bit in order to get the sort of expressiveness that I needed out of him. And the same thing happened with Laylee. Laylee's design was really tricky to adapt. She has a very unique design. And one of the things, for example, that I changed with Laylee is that her nose, she's got this kind of clown nose, and it's very wide. It's almost in wide. Her nose is in widescreen. And so the problem with that nose is that when I did a close-up on the face, if I were to draw like a 3/4 perspective, then her nose would be blocking the view of the eye on the other side of her head. And so it was really hard for me to get a good angle with that nose. So I ended up squaring the nose a little bit. And what I found is that ended up helping me make a more visible read to her expressions. And when people talk about making her more feminine, there are two things really that I did with the characters. And part of this is, I guess, instinctual to my own art style. And part of it is just wanting to sort of flesh the characters out a little bit more. Again, Laylee and Yooka both have sort of their designs are in the game are designed to work from the perspective that you see them in the game. But in the book, they take on a lot of different poses. And, to be able to draw those in a way that it is both appealing and effective, you really need to give it a little bit more detail. And in the process of sort of fleshing out the characters, you're going to end up getting something that's going to look a little bit more anatomically accurate. Now, of course, they're anthropomorphized animals, so accuracy is kind of in the eye of the beholder. But the other thing too, I guess the last point I'll make on that right now is that since I'm working with line art in the comic, in the process of doing line art, you do things like emphasizing eyes because you end up drawing like a black line around the eyes and that sort of thing. And with the effect of line art, it sort of does one aspect of what makeup that's commonly used, would be things like eyeliner and that sort of thing. And interestingly, it's just that when you draw a line literally to represent the eye, it will represent something like eyeliner in a way. And so some of the feature that you're describing in terms of it looking more feminine, maybe just due to the line art. And some of it's personality and having the characters just kind of grow. I changed them a little bit differently as I worked, changed them a little bit, as I progressed in the comic, and where they were in the beginning is not where they ended up at the end. So that's just the sort of natural development that goes into fleshing out characters. So I appreciate that you noticed it. All right, moving on. But I will cover that in more detail. I want to make some videos on my YouTube channel that demonstrate the drawing process of these characters and what goes into making them for the book, because I think it'd be really cool to go over the specifics of every little thing that I changed for the characters. All right, let's see. Apparently, Grant Kirkhope's power just went out. Yes, I think actually it might have been his kids were shutting down the stream because he was getting into the bad language territory. That's my guess. All right. I hope the novel will have a nice full-page shot of each world within the story. Absolutely, yes. You'll be very satisfied in that regard. It definitely. One thing that this book does is cover a lot of territory. There's a lot of different environments, and they're very distinct. In fact, if you go to the Kickstarter page, you'll see a world map. And in the world map, you kind of get a hint of what's going to be contained within this book. So there's a huge variety of landscapes. So you can look forward to that. All right. I'm sure you've read a lot of Eric's stories on the Facebook group. I think it would be wonderful to feature Yoinky in the future at some point. I don't know who Yoinky is, so someone's going to have to let me know about that. Give me details about this Yoinky character. So I can't do it because I don't know what it is. But if I find out what Yoinky is, and I'm guessing it's some sort of Yooka meme, then maybe I can do something with it. But as of right now, I don't know what it is. Will there be another Kickstarter with Playtonic Games? That is definitely out of my jurisdiction. So as far as what Playtonic is doing with their game development, that's really on them. And the book itself is really a totally separate production. It's just you can take heart in knowing that it was developed in close supervision of Playtonic, and here and there getting contribution from Playtonic, and mostly in terms of making edits and suggestions on how the story is presented and the way that characters talk and dialogue, and helping that be in sync with the game. So you can look forward to it being kind of together with how they develop the game. But in terms of what they're doing, I really can't say, unfortunately. All right. Yoinky for Yooka Laylee. All right. Yoinky for Yooka Laylee. Yes. Hashtag Yoinky for Yooka Laylee. Yes. Yoinky is Yuka's brother that Eric made up. Okay. Now, I'm not entirely sure who Eric is either, so I'm going to have to find out more about this. I think I have some research to do. Yeah. It's right. Did you speak with Dean Wilson or Steve Mails about the comics art direction? Yes. When I initially started on the book, I sort of did a test page, which would just give the team kind of a rough idea of how a comic could look. And that's something I'll probably show in the near future, probably during the campaign, and just kind of demonstrate an idea of how it could look. And the characters were different in terms of how they ended up in the comic. They were probably a little closer to the game because initially what I did was I tried to make it as close as I could to what I thought would be an appealing transition of the characters. And there's only so much you can figure out the first time you try that. So the characters naturally evolved over time. But Dean and Steve, at least I know for sure, had provided some feedback on the characters and generally gave me some tips. At one point, in the very an example one was I had given Yooka eyebrows at one point. Sort of he has kind of this unique eye shape, sort of eye anatomy, and I had sort of amplified and emphasized his eyebrows, because one of the things you can do in a line art drawing to try and emphasize emotion is to really emphasize the eyes in any way that you can, and do things like thicken or have very evident eyebrows. But Steve had mentioned that Yooka does not have eyebrows. You got to try and make his eye shapes out of the eye anatomy that's there, and so that was something that I had to modify based on Steve's feedback. Yeah. Will Inept be in this adventure? No. No, Inept will not be in this adventure. Inept is a boss from the game that I just thought was hilarious when I played the game, by the way. But no plans to include Inept in the adventure. That's limited to the game. No chance of Shovel Knight cameoing in this comic. Not right now. That would be interesting, but no, that's not something that I had planned. Yeah, I know that Shovel Knight's in the game, but that's unfortunately I don't have the rights to Shovel Knight, so I can't just pop him in the book. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I think we are probably pretty good to wrap up here. Grant apparently has fallen off the face of the earth about 20 minutes ago and has left me hanging here. So I've tried to fill it and make this as interesting as possible. But I'm gonna come to a wrapping here, and we'll call it quits. I do want to just say thank you so much to everybody who has joined the stream and who has backed the project. In the course of this stream, we managed to raise $3,000. So I have you to thank for that, and for the other backers that have pledged to the campaign. So I do hope that you will become what's the word? I guess you will become diplomats. Is that a word for the project? Help me spread the word, communicate this to people, and let them know that this is a pretty cool thing. Because as I said before, while this is, I'm working as hard as I can to make this into the best book it can be, I certainly want to make more of these. I want to make more books with Playtonic. I'd love to see, more projects that they might develop in the future turn into books, and maybe even be able to make books based on characters that don't become games. So that would be pretty cool. And so, and also to branch out and to work with some different studios as well, and be able to adapt some other properties. I mean, I would love to do something like a Shovel Knight book or a Shantae book or something like that, if that would interest people. So let's make this happen. Let's make it a reality. All right. Well, that's going to draw to a close then. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. And again, if you have not backed the campaign, then please consider and help us spread the word, and go ahead and join the YouTube channel here and subscribe, and you'll be able to follow along with some updates that I'll be giving about the production process. And of course, if you are a backer, you're going to be able to take advantage of backer updates. And I do plan to be very vocal with backer updates. So we'll probably get updates on trying to do it kind of on a weekly basis, and might have as a video, or it might just be down to a blog post or something. But I'll do my best to try and give you as many updates as possible, because that's really the fun of this project at this point. Is I've had to stay quiet for 2 years, and now I get to tell everybody about it. So you get to share along with the coloring process, which is really the most fun, and see the project really take life. All right. Well, thanks so much for everyone joining today, and we will see you soon.